In a quiet corner of the city stood a small cafe named the Daily Brew. It wasn't the kind of place people noticed. The sign was faded, the chairs mismatched, and the walls carried years of silent conversations. For Mira, a single mother in her early 40s, this cafe was her only lifeline. Every morning, before the sun rose, she opened its doors, brewed the first pot of coffee, and hoped that today would be a little kinder than yesterday. Among her few regulars was a quiet man who came in every morning at the same time. He always sat at the same table, table number 3 by the window, and opened an old, worn-out laptop. He never spoke much, ordered the same thing daily, a small cappuccino and a single butter croissant. He would sit there for hours, typing endlessly, his face reflecting the faint blue glow of the screen. To Mira, he was just another customer trying to survive in his own way. But sometimes she wondered what he was working on. A book, perhaps, a project, or maybe just a dream. What she didn't know was that behind that silent screen, a new idea was being born, something that would one day make headlines around the world. The man came every morning, rain or shine, and though he rarely smiled, there was something about the cafe that seemed to comfort him. The smell of fresh coffee, the faint sound of jazz from the radio, and Mira's quiet, constant presence behind the counter. She had her own battles, unpaid bills, rent due, and the constant worry of raising a teenage son alone. Yet she never let the weight of her life dull her warmth. She believed that kindness, even the smallest kind, had a way of returning. Someday, somehow. That belief became her strength, and perhaps it became someone else's too. One morning the man didn't show up. Then another day passed, and another. The chair by the window stayed empty, the air around it strangely quiet. Mira waited for weeks, glancing at the door every time it chimed, but he never returned. She eventually stopped expecting him. Life moved on, as it always does. Months later, Mira's cafe couldn't survive. The rent increased, business slowed, and her savings were gone. The Daily Brew, her dream, her stability, her world, closed its doors for the last time. The smell of coffee faded, replaced by the hollow sound of an empty room. She sold everything she could, even the espresso machine she loved most. Her son asked if they would ever have the cafe again. Mira smiled, but deep down she didn't know the answer. Sometimes dreams die quietly, without sound, without goodbye. A decade passed. Mira was older now, her hair streaked with silver, her hands still steady from years of pouring coffee. Her son had grown into a confident young man, a computer science graduate with big dreams of his own. One evening, while she was preparing dinner, he showed her an online interview of a well-known CEO, the founder of a billion-dollar tech company called Tascora. The man in the video looked confident, polished, successful, but as Mira's eyes met his face, she froze. The same eyes, the same quiet look she had seen behind the laptop at table 3, the stranger from her cafe. In the interview, the CEO spoke about his struggles during the early days, about the loneliness, the self-doubt, and the mornings when he almost gave up. He mentioned a small cafe where he used to work, a quiet place that gave him comfort when everything else was falling apart. He said there was something about the woman who ran it, her kindness, her calmness, that reminded him not to quit. He never mentioned her name. He didn't have to. Mira understood. A week later, Mira received an envelope. No sender's name, just her address, written neatly in ink. Inside was a letter. Short, simple, heartfelt. It said that sometimes success begins not with an idea, but with someone's quiet belief. It thanked her for her small kindness, for the warmth of her cafe, and for reminding a stranger to keep going. Folded within the letter was a check, enough money to rebuild everything she had lost. She sat by the window that night, holding the letter with trembling hands, tears silently rolling down her face. Kindness had found its way back, quietly, just as it had once left. A year later, the Daily Brew reopened. Same name, same spirit, new walls. And behind the counter stood Mira, older, wiser, and deeply grateful. She hung a single frame on the wall, a quote written in soft calligraphy. Be kind. You never know who's sitting at your table. People came and went, as they always had. But sometimes she'd glance at table 3 by the window and smile, as if the memory of that stranger still sat there, quietly typing his dreams into reality.